Thank you, Chairman Cummings, and thank you for allowing me to give a statement and calling this very important meeting. I also want to thank Secretary Kerry and Secretary Hagel for testifying before our committee today and for your decades of public service. As Chair of the Subcommittee on Environment, I appreciate the referral of Chairman Cummings to examine one of the most defining and imperative moral issues of our time. Climate change poses an enormous threat to our environment, our national security, our economy, and our long-term health. Climate change can no longer be thought of as something that may or may not impact us someday. The effects of climate change are already being felt today. Just ask the hurricane survivors in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. You can also ask my fellow Californians, where two most recent wildfire seasons were the deadliest in the state's history, taking the lives of more than 100 fellow Americans and costing approximately $24 billion in damages. I want to echo Chairman Cummings when I say that the debate that I hope we have here today is about what we should do to mitigate the effects of climate change over the next century, not whether climate change is actually occurring and whether human activity is the leading cause. The science on climate change is settled, and we are past the point where this is an issue of debate. A few years ago, the American Association for the Advancement of Science released a report showing that 97% of climate scientists agree that climate change is happening and that it is being caused by humans. I want to read one passage from the report because I want it to hit all of you the way it hit me when I read it. Quote, "The science linking human activities to climate change is analogous to the science linking smoking to lung and cardiovascular diseases. Physicians, cardiovascular scientists, public health experts, and others all agree smoking causes cancer. And this consensus among the health community has convinced most Americans that the health risks from smoking are real. A similar consensus now exists among climate scientists, a consensus that maintains that climate change is happening and that human activity is the cause." So let's let that sink in. The consensus on whether climate change is real is equivalent to the consensus on whether smoking causes cancer. I would wager that every single person in this room and the overwhelming majority of Americans trust the science on smoking, as they should. So why are there people still contesting this science on climate change? As Chairman Cummings points out, the Trump administration's own officials are ringing the alarm on the serious consequences of inaction on climate change. But it does not stop there. There have been other calls to action that cannot be ignored. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change synthesized the work of thousands of scientists, including the top American scientists, into its fifth assessment report. They concluded that the rate of sea level today is larger than at any point in 2,000 years. Oceans have also become 26% more acidic due to the influx of carbon dioxide into the water since the Industrial Revolution. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the official report record, both the United Nations report and the AAS report right here.
Without objection, so ordered.
These facts are scary, and they should be. These are clear, pronounced historical trends. Do we think this is just going to stop? No. It's only going to get worse, and working families, farmers, homeowners, everyone will continue to suffer. This afternoon, the Subcommittee on Environment, which I chair, will launch a series of hearings and investigations on climate change. Through this work, I will hold out a standing invitation to all of my colleagues. Join us. Join us in devising practical, economical solutions to combat climate change. We know that it makes economic sense to incentivize the development and production of alternative energy sources, to heavily invest in electric vehicles, as General Motors has recently done, and make infrastructure more energy efficient to protect our air and water from pollution caused by carbon emissions. We may not all agree on the best policies to achieve these goals, But I look forward to these debates over the upcoming months and years because the best policies are forged through respecting the diversity of American interest, listening to farmers, auto workers, coal miners, rural and urban residents, children and young adults, lower income people, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. But we don't have time to waste. The White House has chosen not to lead on this issue. So it's up to us in Congress to do so. We have a tough problem that needs solving, and we will rise to the challenge. We must say to the world, America will lead.